Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Today I want to talk to you about a tool that I think we really underuse when we play D&D, and that is the hiring of henchmen, hirelings, and retainers. And this is something that I think, for the most part, we tend to not do enough. And that's unfortunate because this can really help out the game in a lot of ways. And so I'm going to talk to you really briefly about like why I like to do this and how I like to handle this mechanically. What's my experience been both as a player and a DM. So, why would you want to do that? First of all, it's survivability, especially in lower level parties. Having some extra guys around to spread out the attacks, if you will, and just the extra bodies, extra people that can attack or do anything, carry stuff, whatever. That helps out. And in real life, RPG players don't grow on trees, and especially not for the older games like I prefer. I like to get new players, but there's not a lot of people out there to choose from. So, sometimes it's hard to get enough gamers. So, being able to hire a few henchmen, say if you got 3 people that show up or 4 people. I played in a game where there was actually 4 or 5 of us most of the time, but at one point I think we had 4 players and 3 henchmen. And that worked out really good. It kind of beefed us up a little bit. The other thing, as a player that really helps you out with, and I've talked about this before, is if your guy dies, now you have this new character, you can just kind of, turn the key and go. So that's really helps. As a DM, what this does is this frees you up to not have to dumb down your game or dumb down your world. Because sometimes when you have just a few players or they're low level, you kind of feel obligated, even though, you might be like me in like a sandbox and just things are the way they are, regardless of the level of the player characters. You don't want everybody to die every single, game. That's not fun for anybody. So this kind of just helps you out with a few extra bodies. Then things can be like appropriately tough or appropriately, appropriate to what they would normally be in this pretend world. You don't have to like, have fewer monsters or whatever. And it also frees you up as a DM to not have to run another NPC cleric in the party because nobody wants to play a cleric or whatever. And there's a lot of reasons why, I don't mind playing an NPC character every once in a while, but it gets to be a drag. It can be a drag for the players too, to have this guy that's kind of stealing spotlight time or whatever you want to call it. So that helps out a lot. So they're useful. I remember when my wizard died in a game I was playing, and I had this other guy who was his henchman. He was a fighter, and he was a few levels behind, but he was a turnkey character. I didn't have to like worry about what do I do now because a lot of people in the party were higher level. This guy already existed. He had a rapport with the people in general, so that helped. Mechanically, I like to do it in the way where the player controls the henchman they hire. I don't like the idea of a party hiring a henchman too much. So my wizard hired a fighter. Okay, so I control that guy. But the DM has like, veto power. So if I'm asking this guy to do something ridiculous, then, or stand in front of the wizard, etc., then the DM's gonna be like, that's not really cool. And, I like to use morale rules. The 2d6 one from Basic is my favorite, not surprisingly. Um, but yeah, and maybe every once in a while the DM kind of declares an action for the henchman just to have a little bit of fun. But for the most part, the player plays this guy like an extra character, but doesn't put like doesn't breathe life into him. So you're really focusing on your guy. But yeah, this henchman and that works out really good. It's not as clunky or as time consuming as you might think it is. I also like the idea of letting the player actually create the henchman. When our DM in the Lamentations game I played in about 4 years ago, when we hired our henchmen, he literally had us. We put up that thing where we hired people, but he's like, okay, roll their stats. So we kind of created these guys. So we had a sense of ownership over the henchmen. It didn't take that much time to roll 6-sided dice and roll for some hit points and whatnot. Give the guy a name, but you had a lot more ownership than as if the DM just kind of handed you, well, here's this guy. And that seems to work out really well. I enjoyed it. The other players enjoyed it, and they were kind of our guys. It wasn't just this kind of nameless or just a body with a name that somebody picked out. It was kind of a real guy, even though we didn't have to breathe a lot of life into him. So that helps. As far as mechanically, how do you level these guys up? Time honored way is to give them half a share of XP. So in the you have a party of like say 4 players and 2 henchmen. You do something which, you have a session which, nets you out like 1,000 XP. Well, all the party members get a full share, so they get 200 XP, and the henchmen get 100 XP apiece, That way they level up just behind everybody else for the most part. And you can take people that are even like 0-level characters and kind of figure out how you're going to level them up into fighters or whatever. You don't just have to hire fighters or rogues or thieves or specialists. It's really kind of cool. I hired, as a wizard, I hired another first-level magic user, and his entire job was not to adventure, but to stay home, watch my laboratory, and transcribe scrolls and transcribe spells from the spell books that I had stolen by killing other wizards or whatever. And his payment was very generous, a lot of money. but also like he got to transcribe these spells into his book. I never got to use him because the game ended before I kind of was able to take him over and play him as a player character. But the idea too was, he would have a very large spell book at that point, so it's kind of cheating a little bit, but not really. And also, I was able to circumvent the magic rules just a little bit in that game. Not in a bad way. I don't think I was cheating, but it costs money and time to make scrolls and to transcribe spells from one book into the other. So like, why not pay some guy an exorbitant amount of money to do that and put him up? And that kind of freed my wizard up to go adventuring. So henchmen, hirelings, whatever. You could talk about them a lot more, but that would just make the video boring. They're really cool. It's something that if you're not doing, I encourage you to do because it really helps out both the player and the DM quite a bit.